Hi, I'm Bob Gimlin. I received a relatively typical sighting submission that I would like to read, because it contains remarkably compelling details and implications as to the North American primate that many call Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Bob, this happened when we were living in the trailer in southeast Kentucky, only 10 minutes or so away from Tennessee. My husband drove a truck, leaving me alone most nights. We had 2 bloodhounds at the time. This was 30 years ago already. One night, the dogs woke me up. They were baying and moaning and scratching fierce at the door, wanting to come inside. I thought it was a skunk. The dogs were skunked before once. It was a nightmare. The trailer wasn't right for years. I opened the door a crack and I did smell skunk. What I thought was skunk. But it wasn't on the dogs directly. So I loosed them, and they hurried inside. I took the flashlight and .22, because I was not putting up with skunked dogs again. The flashlight was not very good, and kind of broke. You had to really press the bottom and top together to get the full juice. I didn't see anything for maybe 10 seconds of sweeping with the junk light. Then I saw it. The first thing I saw lit up was skinny shins, pointing straight up and down. Then giant feet came up. They were bigger than flippers, more like the size of a canoe paddle, and they kind of flopped as if there was a bend in the middle. I moved the light up and saw thick hamstrings, like sides of beef, with a round rump that hung low, almost like it was sitting in a chair. That's all I saw when it crashed into the mulberry and was gone. It was very shaggy with long hair. It was all black. I heard a deep, deep ha-ha and a high whistle. It made less noise walking than you'd expect. This all takes time to type, but from when I first saw it till it was gone was probably less than a second, and it pushed right through the bushes in just a step or two. I wish I had a better flashlight. I had to hold it by the top and press it against my stomach for it to work. I had the dog sleep with me that night. I told my husband about it when he came back. He said I wouldn't doubt it. He knew some old boys in Campbell, Tennessee, who were always out trying to shoot a Bigfoot. I can only say what I saw, even though I don't know what it was. I can show you exactly where I saw it, if you're ever in the area. I tried to say everything you'd want to know. It was the end of August. The only thing out there it could have been after was dog food and the garbage. But they were sealed and never messed around with. There were lots of mulberry trees, but they'd been mostly picked clean by then. You are the first professional, or researcher, or whatever, who I've ever tried to contact. I think you've got a good head on your shoulders. Good luck. God bless. Jay. Okay, so this relatively typical Bigfoot submission contains details that are remarkably consistent with an unverified North American primate, often described as Bigfoot. First, she describes the feet as paddle-sized, that, quote, flopped as if there was a bend in the middle. The mid-tarsal break was first written about in the 1930s as a term to describe the feet of non-human primates. The mid-tarsal break gives apes the ability to lift the heel independently from the rest of the foot, due to joints ranging from 1 to 2/3 down the sole of the foot. Humans, on the other hand, have arched feet, a mechanism that requires little energy to support weight for long periods of time. The arch is ideal for extended periods of standing and walking, particularly while carrying. The description, quote, flopped as if there was a bend in the middle, is entirely consistent with the mid-tarsal break, as the large non-human primates possess. She goes on to describe its large, side-of-beef-sized thighs as, quote, almost like it was sitting in a chair. An arched foot is inferior for this posture, because as we know, arches only work if the weight comes from directly above. The mid-tarsal break is more energy-intensive than the arched foot, however it is more durable. Its responsive musculature allows to compensate for uneven footing and distribution of pressure, whereas in an arched foot, once you know you've stepped on something, you're more or less out of luck. See how the hind foot really raises at different points? The non-human primate's foot is more responsive and reactive than the arched human foot. This is more consistent with the bent leg posture, less reliant on the lock of the knees, as an arched foot requires. Basically, the non-human primate foot is designed to take a beating from the ground beneath, while the human foot is designed to take a beating from weight of the body from above. And the description of feet with a flop in the middle, and a posture that looks as though it was sitting in a chair, is just so dead on with what we see in the known great apes, and what we should expect to see from an unknown great ape. Either the witness is someone terribly familiar with the comparative nuances and distinctions of contrasting primate flexion and locomotor techniques, or she saw, and accurately described, an anatomically valid, living, breathing creature behind her trailer that night. She said that when she first opened the door, quote, "I did smell skunk, what I thought was skunk, but it wasn't on the dogs directly." I think it is safe to gather that there was no skunk involved in this scenario. According to Michelle Klolova and Phyllis Lee's Wild Western Lowland Gorillas Signal Selectively Using Odor, quote, "The use of odor cues in wild ape social communication has been only rarely explored, and until recently, quote, mostly anecdotal. But their findings indicate that chimpanzee and gorilla produce smells that are, quote, context-specific, and, quote, capable of variation as a function of the relationship between the emitter and perceiver. This means that the odor emitted by primates are in fact a form of communication in itself, consciously used, and merely one of many tricks these creatures possess, the lion's share of which, I feel, we have virtually no understanding of. In short, this is why Bigfoot sightings are sometimes accompanied by odor and sometimes not. It is a mechanism. The study speculates that the olfactory communication developed due to the, quote, Central African forests, where limited visibility may necessitate increased reliance on other senses. In the darkness beneath the leaves and fog. Another point of the witness's story that rings true, and I expect you may find thematic in the hunt for these creatures, is that she wasn't unsure of what she saw. I'm never impressed by the witness, who goes on to say, "I thought it was a bear, but it didn't walk like a bear, or look like a bear in any way. I've never seen a bear run on two legs like that." You know it when you see it, even if you don't know what you're seeing. It is the details of this narrative, and the details in so many more like it, that really challenge the notion that this creature is merely a culmination of misidentifications, hoaxes, and campfire stories. There exists hundreds of years and thousands of stories of anthropologically and primatologically consistent reports, many of which predate those very fields. It's all very curious. And keep in mind that if just one of these sightings are true, then there is something tremendously interesting happening here. The witness was gracious enough to invite me to the site. Thank you for the invite sincerely, and as soon as I achieve the funds and resources required to equip myself and crew, I will certainly take you up on that offer. You're high on the list, so please, like and subscribe to accelerate that process, and as always, thanks an awful lot for listening.